we're going to call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Board of Directors of BAWSCA for Thursday, March 19, 2026. Roll call, please.
Director Andrews. Director Bro.
Present in spirit and voice.
Director Chambers.
Present.
Director Cohen. Director Duncan. Here. Director Hamilton.
Here.
Director Hardy.
Present.
Director Jordan.
Here.
Director Kiesel.
Here.
Director Lincoln. Director Manalo. Director Mellinger. Director Mickelson.
Here.
Director Montano.
Here.
Director Nash.
Here.
Director Piccolotti. Director Pierce. Director Ragsdale.
Here, and reporting for Director Stevenson, who's in the building finishing a council meeting and will be here soon. He'll be
Okay.
coming in soon.
Great. Director Schneider.
Here.
Director Showalter. Stevenson we talked about. Director Stone.
Here.
Director Vella.
Here.
Director Weed.
Here.
And Director Zichterman.
Here.
Okay, quorum.
Excellent, very good. So, Pledge of Allegiance. So we do the flag, so could please rise. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good, thank you very much. And good evening, directors, staff, colleagues. Thank you so very much for being here and welcome. And thank you for the support at our January meeting. I hope you knew what you were doing. And as chair, I am also committed to continue BAWSCA's goal of ensuring reliable supply of high-quality water at fair price for our region. And I look forward in achieving this with the support of all directors and all stakeholders. To start off, I would like to remind directors that we do have 2 directors attending by telephone, so all votes will need to be roll call. In addition, CEO Smagel has a late flight out of SFO this evening, and he needs to leave here by 9, so we need to move this meeting forward if possible.
Or I'll leave before it's over.
So tonight we have a short public hearing on a new state-required report on vacancies. The BAWSCA does not have any vacancies among its staff at the moment. After that, we will have a report and discussion of the preliminary 2026-2027 work plan and budget, followed by a report on the rate-setting process defined in the water supply agreement. Last, we will receive an update on the Strategy 2050 project, including a report on affordability measures undertaken by agencies outside BAWSCA region and what is upcoming for the project in 2026. And for the closed session, I'd like to turn it over to Allison, please, our counsel.
Good evening, board members. Agenda item 11 is a closed session, but at this time, board leadership did not think we needed a closed session because the brief that was filed by BAWSCA on March 2nd has been distributed to you. It is a public document. CEO Smagel will be speaking about the filing and any other updates on the Bay Delta Plan in open session as typical under the CEO reports. But we, Chair Vella and I wanted to offer the opportunity, if you think you have questions about strategy or other questions that are appropriate for closed session, we can certainly do that. But if there are no questions now, we can decide to skip closed session for this particular meeting. So this is your opportunity to say you want to talk further.
Okay, hearing none.
Okay.
Okay,
Very good. Okay, thank you. So at this point, the closed session then will not be held, correct? Correct. Okay, very good. Okay, moving along, the Board Policy Committee report. Chair Ragsdale?
Yes, thank you. The minutes were accurate, and just want to ask all board members to make sure to read the BPC minutes. I find them always very helpful. I feel I'm always summarized in a way that shows me much more articulate than I am, so I very much appreciate those detailed minutes and the care that's taken to put them together. And even if it's a subject you think you know, it's helpful to read it over. So just pointing that out. And we were very happy to welcome Directors Hamilton and Andrews to the BPC and thank both of them for joining us. That's it.
Very good. And I would like to add to the thank you to Director Zichterman and Director Snyder for serving on the BPC. Thank you very much. So we have a question. Director Snyder?
I have a question for issues that were said at the meeting but didn't show up in the minutes. How does one address that? I'll give you a for example, if that will help. City Manager Tom Williams from the City of Millbrae asked the policy committee, either the policy committee or the board, to have a study session on the issues impacting Millbrae. There is no mention of that in the minutes. So I don't know what the next steps are for that. I know this is just a report out on the minutes, but there are a bunch of questions, obviously from a Millbrae perspective, that were not included in the minutes.
Yeah, I think our usual policy, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we don't summarize all of the public comment. I think we just say that public comment was provided. So my understanding is that's our usual policy. I don't know if that's, yes, that's our usual policy. Yeah. So, but the meetings are recorded.
Exactly, I listened to them. But does that mean that the City of Millbrae needs to make a formal request for this body, whether it's policy or policy and board, to go into detail of the issues in Millbrae?
And that issue is above my pay grade. So I would refer that to the chair and CEO. Thank you.
And I'm
Go ahead.
going to refer to council. Just my understanding is that the agenda is the prerogative of the chair, and so you should address requests to the chair.
Happy to.
So.
Yeah. I never received that request, so. Okay.
I'm
Anything
sorry,
else?
the chair of the policy committee or the chair of the board?
The chair
BAWSCA chair.
of whichever it is going to go. It's probably going to go to the board policy committee first, and then it comes to this board, just like
Okay.
any topic.
There's quite a few other questions. Would that be better brought to the policy committee next month? Things that were not addressed? How do you handle that?
I would do it through the board chair, and then if needed, board chair would consult with BPC.
Okay. Just acknowledge there were many things that were said and not in the minutes, which makes you wonder that you cannot count the minutes. You really have to watch the meeting. Thank you.
All right.
Chair Vella?
Sure.
Certainly.
Yes.
I can address that briefly. The minutes, the legal requirement for minutes is a summary of the actions taken by the board, and different agencies have different practices as to how much detail they include in the minutes. And it is true, we have a recording, and the recording is available online, very soon after the meeting. So I think this is worth a discussion offline with the chair about how to memorialize your concerns given past practice at BAWSCA, and that the minutes, the minimum legal requirement is the summary of the board actions, and then the practices of each agency is a little different.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The issue is that there was a member agency present in person at the policy meeting that made a request of both the policy and the board, and I cannot tell from the historical record what has happened with that request. It appears that it was ignored. And then I'm not sure how in this body, on this agenda tonight, to bring it up under which agenda item. It is not clear that any of the Millbrae-specific issues fit into any of the agenda items for tonight. The only place that it is really discussed is in a little bit on the capital improvement plan, indirectly in the 50-year water plan, indirectly in terms of financing on that. So it just doesn't leave someone an ability to know where to go. And if the direction is put it all in a letter to the board, the chair, so be it.
So may I, if you like, when we had the director's discussion, by all means, bring it up, today, at the director's discussion, that you want this to be on the agenda, and then it will be taken into consideration. You have the director's discussion at item 14.
Thank you.
All right? Director Zichterman, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just requesting if we could get the Board Policy Committee meeting minutes sooner than a few days before the board meeting. If they're produced a week or maybe two after the board policy, that'll give us more time to review the content. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Director Snyder, you have any other questions? Okay. All right, we'll move on to public comments.
We have two public comments.
All right. We have Peter Druckmeyer.
Good evening, Peter Druckmeyer, Policy Director of the City Rivers Alliance. I sent you a document this morning, and I apologize, it was pretty last minute, and it might be too in the weeds. But the purpose of it was to say and show you that there are a lot of different ways to look at water supply needs. Two of the big ones are the length and severity of drought planning and demand projections. And so I used data that we got 9 years ago from the SFPUC's modeler, and we used it to create a water supply calculator. And over the years, I've provided you different scenarios. So that's the raw data for that. And it's interesting, in that data, they looked at 265 MGD demand, because we know there's a sales cap obligation. And they looked at 223 MGD demand because following the water system improvement program, water use declined, and it kind of plateaued at about 223 for a few years. And so that's considered the baseline at the time. And we had the drought in the teens, and demand plummeted, and it never rebounded past 200 MGD for the last 11 years. The Sierra Club drought model talks a little bit about that. And it happens that the demand projections in the Urban Water Management Plan for 2050 are 222, so very close, so you can just compare the two. And as we know, those demands are always higher than what we experience because they're based on everything getting built. So anyone who feels like, gosh, we've got to have enough water for all that housing, that's baked into the Urban Water Management Plan. You don't need to worry about that. And so what I showed is that if we plan for the same drought as Valley Water and East Bay Mud and NET and others, we could manage the Bay Delta plan at that 2050 demand projection. No more than 20% rationing. I don't expect you all to understand this, but I would encourage you to ask staff to take a look at it and just report back. This is accurate to us, or we challenge certain things.
Very good.
If they aren't comfortable doing that, they could ask the SFPUC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, Dave Warner?
Thank you. I'm Dave Warner. 3 comments. First is I've come to learn to understand how difficult this work is for many of you. Some of you here are not only BAWSCA board members, some of you are also city council members, and some of you also have a full-time job. And holy Toledo, each one of these could be a full-time job alone. So just thank you for your service. The second thing is, I too was late getting letters out, and so I would encourage you in the supplemental packet that's here to take a look at my letters. One I'll talk about later, but my third subject is, this is urban water management plan season. All your agencies are working on their urban water management plans. And I would just ask if you would take a look at this letter. It looks at all the BAWSCA agencies, and you can't see this chart, but it basically says, we're going to increase our demand from 180 MGD roughly, or 190 MGD to 220 MGD roughly, or an additional 30 MGD. And then this chart breaks out which of our agencies are using the most of that water. And then the second chart in this letter also says which agencies have the biggest percent increase. And it ranges from, one is off the chart, but the average is 15% for BAWSCA. And except for the one off the chart, the high is Hayward, and the low is Palo Alto, so that's interesting. And then the last thing for urban water management plans is it also tracks, okay, from the 2020 UWMP and the 2022 UWMP, how do we do with actual 2025 data from the 2025 demand study and predicting what 2025 results would be. And it shows that, here's everybody over predicted and by how much. And so I think the moral to the story is, if you could encourage your teams and water management reps to really sharpen their pencils on these urban water management plans, because anybody that over forecasts, it affects us all. And we're seeing the results of that now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I also wanted to ask Director Bro and Director Webster
I don't think he's here yet.
if they have,
Lincoln.
okay, he's not there.
But Director Bro is there.
Director Bro, is there any questions from your end or any comments, and is there anybody else with you?
No, sir, there is no one else with me here in Kanagawa, Japan, and thank you for the opportunity. I have no further questions.
So I'm not going to keep on asking you for this one time only, okay? If there's anybody else, you tell us, okay?
Yes, sir, happy to.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the SFPUC report. Steve or Allison, there we go. Hello.
Good evening. All right, Allison Castema, BAWSCA liaison for the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to present this water supply update. So this data does come from basically midnight on the 16th, so as typical for us. Right now, reservoir storage is looking pretty good. Continues to be above our historical average. So if you see here at the total system storage at the very bottom here, typically we're around almost 80%. We're almost at 90. That is partially because of carryover storage. It's also because we had good rainfall and some snow earlier in the water year, October, November, December. And we, of course, were also operating a longer Hetch Hetchy mountain tunnel shutdown for the upcountry operation to do that capital work. Across the state, you will see that many of the reservoirs across the state, pretty much all of them, I believe, are also above their historical average for this time of year. So this is not unusual for our system. We are seeing that across the state, and this is pretty much the pattern we have been seeing this water year. The drought monitor this time, we are seeing a little bit of yellow return here in this week. Prior week, I don't believe we saw anything. In the prior couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks, we hadn't seen any indication in the drought monitor. So we're just starting to see that reappear in the northern portion here. Precipitation up at Hetchy, you'll see we were trending near our median. We are just slightly under that median for the period of 91 to 20. So you'll see a bit more here as we go through precipitation and snowpack. Right now, upcountry, we're at 23.59 inches total for the 12-month water year. Obviously, in March, we have had very little precipitation so far, but we were above average those first October, November, December. January was pretty good. We were very close in February. This total is almost 80% of the 12-year water year, the median. So not bad, even with the temperatures we're seeing recently. Bay Area is also a little bit better, if I've got that correct. I think 90% here for the 12-month water year median. So similar picture. We did see above average in February, but not much here in March. The snowpack is pretty much tracking what we saw in 2025, so it's under the median. We will be receiving another sort of snow survey April 1st. So we're under, but again, we've got pretty good conditions in storage. This is not that unusual for the system. As I said, we saw this in 25. Water availability available to the city. This is actually a tracker of how much is available to our system. If you're familiar with this chart, the blue is the inflows into Hetchy. The brown, orange line there is what is owed to the district. So we collect anything above that orange line, and the green line is that cumulative. So just tracking what is available to us on the system. And this we have shown in previous years, which is what it takes to fill the system. We're at 220,000 acre feet against what we would look for 431,000 acre feet in order to fill the system by July 1. So we do still have snowpack to melt, right? So that's where we're at today. And again, you can see when we've had very wet years, we've had very dry years on this tracker. Precipitation forecast in the next week, 6 days, we're not seeing anything. Pretty much what you would expect with the temperatures we're seeing today, quite warm here and in San Francisco. And then total deliveries, again, we see very frequently with temperatures, these track with temperatures, at least in early periods. If this were to go on to be extended, we would maybe see demand go down, but we're at 181, which tracks those higher temperatures and drier weather. And that is my update. Happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Dr. Hardy?
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's more of a general question. In fact, some ways it's best not to be specific, but just with everything going on in the world and just having had the Super Bowl at our stadium, I'm very aware of security.
Yeah.
And I want to make certain that we are handling security both from on the ground and from a cybersecurity situation.
Yes, I do know that we have had through BAWSCA some inquiry about cybersecurity in particular. If you aren't familiar, we do have a emergency planning and security group that is under our general manager. So we have a San Francisco Police Department captain, used to be? I can't hear you, but. Oh, he used to be FBI. So we have that security director on board who looks at our security of our facilities. We also have a very robust program for cybersecurity within our IT department. We spend quite a bit of money on it. We do not speak about details of it because of those concerns, but it is definitely something that we are always focused on and have a dedicated group that looks to all of those requirements. I hope that helps.
Okay, Director Schneider?
Thank you. I always appreciate the slides. So the last couple of days, the news has been talking about the heat wave and melting of snowpack. My question's somewhat related to that, but also that I had to use water outside in March, which I don't usually have to do. But the last time we were in this kind of cycle, what became the related increase in the cost of water because people will already go back into drought mode? I'm going to go back into drought mode on that. So I know that it's a little premature for that, but given that I've been attending the SFPUC meetings and hearing your finance people talk about how much of the system is paid for by water use and we go into a severe drought, I know we're not in it, but we are acting like it and people are so attuned to it, and my constituents are very attuned to it, that we're going to start seeing less water use, less money into the system, and with an already projected 7 to 10% increase from SFPUC to we wholesale customers, what are we going to see in the next couple of years? And I know I'm asking you to wave a magic wand. I understand that.
Thank you. I would just, of course, I don't have all the answers on
projections and what that could look like. We do like to remind everyone that we're seeing it right now, which is we've had some drier, warmer weather, and we do see an increase in consumption or demand because people are not presuming we are deep in a drought so far. They are watering, landscaping, et cetera, whatever those conditions may be. So we tend to see an uptick when the weather is drier. The other thing to note, of course, is we were wetter in October, November, December. So I think we spoke to this in January, is that wetter portions, you see less purchases because it's wet and they don't have the need. Cooler weather as well. So very weather dependent. We have seen much more when we get into prolonged periods of drought or calls for conservation. I will make mention that part of the contract is we provide a water availability letter to the wholesale customers. There are two initial letters we send out, February 1st, March 1st. Those both have gone out, and the final availability will come out April 15th. Those first two letters, once again, very much mirror what I said today. Our water storage is in good condition. We are not anticipating any reduction of availability to the wholesale customers. We expect to meet the full demands that we would expect from you. So that's at least this year. We will be watching weather. We'll be watching what happens across the state. Should conditions continue, in previous years, we've asked for voluntary reductions as an initial start or other actions. So we'll be continuing to watch. But at least the first two letters we've sent have indicated no expected even voluntary reduction at this point in time. And again, we sent it out March 3rd, I think, and it was before we hit even this higher temperature. Yeah, so hope that helps.
Any other comments, questions, anybody? Okay, very
Thank
good,
you.
thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the consent calendar. The approval of the minutes, received the file budget status report, file investment report, file bond surcharge. Any questions on that? Consent. Yes, Director Snyder.
I have a question on the bond surcharge. I don't know if that means pulling it off. It's just a question to put out there. It's your call.
We can't take a group question, I guess, with Christina. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, because I have been attending SFPUC budget meetings, including those that don't cover just water, the staff person up at SFPUC has been talking about the fact that most of their system is debt paid for. So I started diving into their bond ratings and what the long-term projections are for bond ratings for SFPUC. My question for us, now this is our bond is a smaller bond, but since we pay 67% of the system, if SFPUC's bond rating is dropped, how will that impact us? Don't need to have an answer tonight, just know that that is something that we need to be following. Because right now the projections are looking a little I don't want to make it sound scary. They're just saying, San Francisco's borrowed a hell of a lot of money. Thank you.
We actually have San Francisco's one of their rate people here.
Okay. I don't know if he's.
I think we can follow up on that with staff later. I don't know, Christina, you're able to respond to that right now. It's possibly also a question to San Francisco, Director Schneider.
So I think, we will follow up with our bond counsel to give you the definitive answer on that. But as far as I understand, BAWSCA, so our official statements include all the information needed for the rating agency to provide us the rating. And so far, our rating has always been stable and always been reaffirmed every year. As far as I understand, I think PUC's their rate, if they have a downgrade on their rating in the future, I do not think we are impacted because our surcharge, the revenue for our surcharge, there is a very specific methodology on how to calculate that, which is collected from all our member agencies. And we have, I think because it's a different system, I do not think their rating situation would impact ours, but I will run this by our bond counsel and follow up with you.
I appreciate that, but given the 10-year CIP and a huge number of projects that have not yet been built into water rates, I'd just like to see that explained. Thank you. I'm not worried about our bond rating, especially for the bond that is supposed to be paid off by 2034. I'm talking about any future costs that we may have to front pay or pay. Thank you.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'm willing to make that motion to approve the consent calendar.
Okay,
I'll
Dr.
be
Pierce?
happy to second.
Okay, we do have a, yes. Public comment? Okay, thank you, yes. Do we have any public comments? And yes, I do have Mr. Dave Warner.
Sorry, just very quick comment. So the San Diego County Water Authority went through the situation with the bonds to Director Schneider's question, that if SFPUC's bond rating drops, and it has not dropped, and Mr. Ritchie has corrected me on previous discussions where I said it was just got a negative outlook at one point.
Or wastewater.
Okay, but anyway, the point I would like to make here is that if SFPUC's bond rating declines, their cost of borrowing goes up. And the projects that they're funding that we pay 2/3 of, we will see our costs increase also. So the SFPUC's bond rating very much does affect our rates. And that's just the clarification I'd like to make.
Very good, thank you. Any more public comments? Okay. Steve? Please. Mr. Ritchie.
It seems like there's no other point for it. I would just make the comment that the water bond rating has been stable, and we expect it to remain stable. But I would certainly hate to hear speculation on what our bond rating might be in the future. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so we do have a motion and a second, so we'll have a roll call, please.
Yes. Director Bro. Director Bro, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, it took me a minute to find it. Director Bro, aye for Brisbane and GPMIT. Apologies.
Director Chambers.
Aye.
Director Cohen. Director Duncan.
Aye.
Director Hamilton.
Aye.
Director Hardy.
Yes.
Director Jordan.
Yes.
Director Kiesel.
Aye.
Director Mellinger.
Aye.
Director Mickelson.
Yes.
Director Montano.
Aye.
Director Nash.
Yes.
Director Piccolotti. Director Pierce.
Aye.
Director Ragsdale.
Yes.
Director Schneider.
Yes.
Director Showalter.
Yes.
No Stevenson yet. Director Stone.
Yes.
Director Vella.
Yes,
Director Weed.
Dr. Weed.
Aye.
And Director Zichterman.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Excellent, thank you. So we'll move on to the action calendar. Consider resolution number 2026-01, the nomination of Mr. John H. Weed.
We won't make John do this for himself. I'll handle this. I'm going to do this from here. I mean, I guess you could say something. Probably have enough.
Questions about my background or experience. I would note of the 9 Form 700s I turn in each year, 2 of them are from the BAWSCA and the Refinance Authority. Thank you.
So Director Weed has been nominated by Alameda County Water District to be on the California Water Insurance Fund Board of the Association of Aqua JPIA.
Yes.
That's a lot of words to say Aqua JPIA. And so ACWD and Director Weed have requested our support or the support of this board. So that's the resolution that you have in front of you. happy to take any questions.
Very good.
or Other comments.
So I do have one question, because I read your CV. When do you have time to sleep?
I have a wife who asks the same question.
At least she still stays with you. Okay. Any other questions that we have? Director Piccolotti, and who else do we have? Director Piccolotti, please.
I'd just like to move approval.
Absolutely. And Dr. Jordan, yes. Okay, so we have a motion and a second,
Public comment.
and public comment. Anybody?
No.
Any public comments? Hearing none? Okay, roll call.
Take the roll. Director Bro,
Enthusiastically, yes.
Director Chambers,
Yes.
Director Cohen, Director Duncan,
Yes.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Hardy,
Yes.
Director Jordan.
Yes.
Director Kiesel,
Aye.
Director Millinger,
Aye.
Director Mickelson,
Yes.
Director Montano,
Aye.
Director Nash,
Yes.
Director Piccolotti, Director Pierce,
Yes.
Director Ragsdale,
Yes, and thank you for taking this on again.
Director Schneider,
Yes.
Director Showalter,
Yes.
Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Vella,
Yes,
Director Weed, and hopefully, and Director Zichterman. That's unanimous as well. So,
excellent. Congratulations. Okay. We'll move on to public hearing. So at this time, the board will conduct a public hearing for the purpose of complying with Assembly Bill 2561. First, we will begin with the status of agency vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts. Then we will invite members of the public to make their comments after staff presents a brief report. I would like to ask the CEO and Manager Tom Smagel to please, for the background of this hearing.
great. We do have a slide on this. So this section of government code became effective January 1st of last year. This is the first time that BAWSCA is running through this. We currently have no vacancies. We have 9 staff, including myself. But nevertheless, this has to be done prior to the adoption of the budget. So that's why we're bringing it for a vote here today. You went. We don't have a union. Normally, if there were a union, they would give this presentation, talk about recruitment efforts. You've probably seen this at your home agency. Now you can go to the next slide, Lourdes. Thank you. We do have one retirement coming up, Christiane Barth, who's our office assistant. I don't know if she's here, but she is retiring at the end of April. And we do have a temp who's come in to shadow her, and hopefully and that's Sandra, if she can wave. Sandra will hopefully take over for Christiane when Christiane retires. So we're in good shape. We don't have any recruiting issues. Happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Okay, good, thank you. And before we hear testimony, I would like to ask legal counsel to review the steps that have been taken to inform public of the issue that are the subject of this hearing.
Certainly. Good evening. The public hearing notice was posted on the agency's website and shared with the clerks of the boards for the member agencies on March 9th, 2026. And confirmation of the posting were received from the agencies within BAWSCA's jurisdiction in all 3 counties, Alameda, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties.
That's it? Very good, thank you. Has any correspondence been received from the public to be incorporated into the record?
No correspondence has been received from the public.
Okay, very good. At this time, I will call for public testimony on this matter. Each member of the public will be limited to 3 minutes. Any public comments? Seeing none? Okay, that's it. So we'll,
You can ask if there's any board comments.
maybe, board comments? Okay, we do have more comment. Director Hardy, please.
I just want to thank staff, and I appreciate the time and effort and energy, and I truly appreciate that we're not losing too much brain trust.
Very good. All right, cool. Chair, please.
Close the hearing on the
Yes,
record.
we're going to be here, closing the public hearing. And now we're going to move on to reports and discussions with the, make it up to the podium.
I'm here.
All right. CEO Schmagel, please.
All right, so this is our presentation, my presentation for this meeting, one of a series of presentations that we make about the work plan and the budget every spring. So I'm just going to get right into it. You're going to be familiar with a lot of this because we've talked about some of it before, and it's a very similar work plan from year to year, but we do highlight the changes that we're proposing to make for next year's work plan. So in your packet, Table 1 presented the draft preliminary 26-27 work plan, and Table 2 presented activities that are not included in the work plan, but are kind of contingent activities that might be included at a later date if they're necessary to include, and we'd come back to the board and ask for additional budget if those were to be included. It identifies and addresses critical issues for BAWSCA between now and 2065. And so this year it includes the conclusion of our Strategy 2050 project. That's expected to conclude around the end of the calendar year, 2026, so mid-year in this fiscal year process. So we have a new task that is proposed for the fiscal year, which is to do implementation exercises. So work plan items that are identified out of the strategy project, that's part of what we're going to be doing in the second half of the year, is identifying how to incorporate them into the next year's work plan, any of the projects and activities that are identified in that project. Nagin will be, Dr. Ashuri will be talking with us later tonight about a status update on that plan, and so you could certainly ask her questions about the status of the plan and where it's going for the next 9 months or so. The other thing which is exciting, and SF staff is sitting down, so that's good. We've been waiting for a long time for San Francisco to produce an asset management plan that we could review and understand their asset management planning, and this is this plan of scheduled maintenance, preventative maintenance for the system. And we found out last month that they are preparing and will be presenting as part of their State of the Water System update a strategic asset management plan. So we're very excited to have an opportunity to look at that, review that as part of their the State of the Water System exercise. And so we've added that as a work plan element as well. The last new work plan item that I wanted to mention, and this is to Director Schneider's point, I think a little bit. We've identified that over time, San Francisco has increased the amount of capital that is included in current rates. So I'll get into that in a second. Less debt, more current rate revenue being used to provide for capital projects. We'd like to investigate that, and I have some details about that in a minute. So we've incorporated the input from this board's meeting of January 15th, as well as from the BPC in February. We do also, as part of this process, do a staff loading exercise, and so that's also in your packet. What I will say is that the staff loading is down a bit from last year. One of the things that has happened between the 25-26 and 26-27 is that we've concluded the demand study. And so that was, some of the staff work has gone away from that, and also some of the consultant cost has gone away from that, which we'll discuss in a moment. So what I normally like to do here is run through relatively quickly all of the major elements of the work plan. And what we've highlighted and what you saw highlighted in Table 1 were the changes that we've made, are proposing for the work plan. And so, for instance, on this first page, which is reliable water supply, I just mentioned this, we're adding this component of reviewing the SFPUC's strategic asset management plan, which will be finalized in 26-27, and recommend modifications or additions. So that's a new item. Otherwise, these are the same activities and same work plan items that we proposed in this area for the last fiscal year. For our long-term water supply solutions, the strategy project is obviously completion of Strategy 2050, And as I mentioned, developing a plan for the implementation of Strategy 2050, including identification of specific work efforts to be put into the next fiscal year. Item H here down at the bottom of the page is what I'll get to. Let me just jump to that because I have a little bit of a detail on that. I kind of befuddled the BPC with this a month ago, so I'm gonna try and do a little bit better. So San Francisco Public Utilities Commission rate calculations include cost of debt, which finances capital spending over time, and something called revenue-funded capital, which is revenue that pays directly for capital expenditures. So as part of their CIP process, they identify how much of it's going to be paid for right away, how much is going to be financed and paid for over time. In recent years, that amount of revenue-funded capital, so the amount that we're paying, that the BAWSCA members and your customers are paying right up front for capital projects that may have a longer life, that percentage has increased. And it's now, I believe, pretty close to about 40%. So this is a policy decision that San Francisco has been making over time to increase this percentage. BAWSCA staff would like to understand the motivations behind this policy, would like to determine whether the way that that policy is going is in the best interest of your customers and the customers of the BAWSCA agencies. And the reason is it's a trade-off. So you're trading off having higher rates now and having lower rates in the future. And it may be that this is the right trade-off. It may be that we conclude that this is a great thing that they're doing, and we'd rather pay money now and not pay as much later, not finance as much later. But we also want to look at whether there's any constraints and whether the constraints are causing them to charge us rates that maybe we wouldn't rather want to charge. Maybe we'd rather push those costs into the future. So some of the subjects that we're going to investigate if this is adopted as a work plan, what are the constraints? Is it the constraint of the WSIP debt, the debt that was funding the $5 billion of capital? Is there something that the RFA could do to help this process? Is there something about the revenue from BAWSCA that doesn't quite work to do their bond coverage ratios? To what extent is this policy reasonable and consistent with industry peers, some of the other organizations out there? And at what point will the existing debt load from the WSIP be retired or substantially retired, which could potentially allow for more debt financing and more spreading of cost over time? Those are the kinds of things we'd like to look at in this new work plan item. I'm excited about it. I'm a bit of a finance guy, rate-making guy, so that's something that I'm proposing. Happy to discuss it, and I'm happy to hear if you guys don't want me to do that. But I'd like to do it. And then just as a reminder, the last sort of detail slide, the Strategy 2050 project, when we get to the budget, it's the staff hours are in here for Strategy 2050, but your agencies are paying for Strategy 2050 through a special water management charge. So it's not part of the core budget of BAWSCA. And so you'll see that when we get to the budget numbers that we have. Okay, so really quickly, I'm going to run through some of our other core work plan items. Water conservation and drought response. We're not proposing any changes here. This is a pretty big area of effort for BAWSCA, but it's not something that we have a need to change right now. So we're proposing to stay the course on that. So water supply administration, protecting your financial interests in water supply administration. There are two items here that I wanted to call your attention to. First is that we have passed the updated Tier 2 plan. So we'll administer that as necessary. Whether or not there's a drought, there are some tasks that are required annually as part of that Tier 2 plan. And then item D here, which is not new, but I wanted to identify that it's going to be a major additional work effort for staff this year, which is protecting, is focusing on the necessary amendments to the water supply agreement required before 2028. This has to do with San Jose and Santa Clara, as well as some provisions for BAWSCA in general. And it does give us an opportunity to look at other changes that both SFPUC and BAWSCA might want to consider in that WSA. And so that's something that's going to be a major work project this year, this calendar year, in order to get it ready for a potential approval of all of the agencies in 2027 so that it could be effective in 2028. So I just wanted to highlight that's additional work that we're going to be doing. It's not a new item. That's an item that's been there for a number of years. Again, here in reliable water supply, this is continuing work, working with the state water board and all of that. The grant opportunities are back a little bit. I know we had some discussion last year because Trump administration had really cut down on all federal funding. We're now seeing an opportunity for water smart grants again. So this will ramp back up. There's still a bit of a slowdown, but there may be some opportunities now that we didn't have last year to pursue grant opportunities. And that's something that is in the BAWSCA staff core responsibility. And obviously the annual tracking of water usage, water conservation, and all of your agencies. Communication on water quality is not changing, so not proposing any changes there. And then the work that Christina does on administering the WSA, making sure that the costs are allocated correctly and reasonably, that will continue as it has for many years. And no changes proposed there. And again, sorry to bore you with these no changes slides, but no changes in item 10 or 11 as well. So community interest and managing the agency, no big changes proposed in those categories. So I mentioned up top that we did a staffing analysis. All of the staff we feel is projected to be within 100 to 125% of available hours. Realize that potentially means that we're working more than the allocated 40 hours a week. We did drop our staff hours from the equivalent of 10.7 FTE last year to 10.2 FTE this year because of the reduction in the demand study. I think that may drop even a little bit more in the following fiscal year as we complete the strategy project. And so we'll be a little bit less stressed on time in that next fiscal year. So this is just a scope of the staff. I'm on the left. And you can see it's kind of a range. Most of the staff is around 100% with a couple of exceptions. And also, I think this was in your packet as well, this table, which just shows how we break down. We have some pie charts here as well, how we break down what the staff is focused on. So this is numerical, and I thought I had okay. So just to jump ahead, I have a pie chart that shows that the budget and the time of the staff is based on reliable supply for the most part, fair price, with about a quarter of our work on agency operations. And then breaking this down by category of expense, about half of your BAWSCA budget is salary and benefits, with the rest, most of the rest being consultants, with administrative and operational expenses, the rest. So the great news is that because of the lack of the demand study, which cost us last year about $250,000, or this current year about $250,000, we are not in need of an increase in assessments. Without an increase in assessments, we could get our job done, and the assessments would pretty much equal the budget. And so that is great news. Where am I? Sorry, I got lost there for a second. And I mentioned the strategy project is funded by the water management charge. So I'm going to jump to the table. This shows proposed options for our fiscal year 26-27 assessments. Now, just from a timing standpoint, this is going to go to the BPC for a recommendation next month. So staff's not asking the board for a recommendation on this right now. This is only for discussion consideration. BPC will come back with a recommendation for the board to vote on at the May meeting. But this is just to show that you can see where we are. With 0% assessment increase, which is the third column here, our assessments would be about $5.4 million. And the total operating budget that we're estimating right now is a little bit under that. So we would be adding about $50,000 to reserves. And so you can see that we proposed the potential for various small increases or decreases that would be at the board's pleasure of changing the assessment. All of the assessment proposals, all of the range of proposals would keep us in good stead on our budget, a budgeted reserve balance, which the policy is from 20 to 35% of the operating budget. All of these are in the range of 26 to 29%. And so they're well within the range that we have set, that you as a board have set for the reserves. So we believe the budget will, staff believes that the budget will meet the goals, the goal elements of reliable supply of high quality water at a fair price. It will accomplish the work that we need to do in the year that we're talking about and prepare us well for the future going forward to 2065. Just as a reminder, a lot of our elements have provided significant value to your agencies and to the BAWSCA membership in general. Christina's work on the water revenue requirement has saved the customers around $50 million since 2001. The bond refunding that we did in 2023 will save water customers about $90 million over the term of the bonds. And the estimated cost that BAWSCA imposes on your customers is approximately $2.83 per person annually. So not a whole lot of cost there for the good work that we do. As I mentioned, next steps, feedback from your comments will be incorporated in what we present to the BPC, and they will make a recommendation on an assessment change and then bring that back to this board in May for recommended action. That is the end of my report on this topic. Happy to take any questions.
Very good. Thank you very much. I do not have any speakers card on this topic, but we do have a couple of directors. So Director Snyder, followed by Director Zichterman.
Sorry, initially, the Vice Mayor of Millbrae has been trying to get on board to be able to comment, but it appears there's no way to phone in. He's at a place where Wi-Fi is not working. Is there any way for him to be able to call in?
Call in.
I had the same problem on the policy meeting last month.
Yeah, unfortunately, BAWSCA does not conduct hybrid meetings. We do not have a stable internet connection and reliable infrastructure with this facility.
Okay,
And so we just have traditional meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize.
All right.
It's something we would like to investigate, but right now we are limited by the constraints of this facility.
Okay, then, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's pretty much what I told him, but, because I had the same problem last month on that. You just aren't always in a place where you can Wi-Fi in, internet in, beyond it's okay. A couple of questions. One of the slides you talked about no changes in communication, and I know that that's communication on reliability. There was and in your CEO letter, you talk about a problem that happened in Alameda County and Hayward, and a nice explanation of that and how the communication worked. Now, I don't know if what I'm going to bring up is something that happens to every agency, but SFPUC was doing some high-pressure work. It blew out 3 pipe systems in Millbrae, causing multiple days water outages. And now, me as a board member, I didn't get any news, and eventually, because one of the blown pipes was the street behind me, I could see it and I could hear the work. Does the question of supply and communication at the district, at the member agency level, are we happy with that? Could it be better?
What I would say to that is that in the strategy discussions with your water management reps, so the staff representatives from all the agencies, we have had two workshops in recent months that have to do with emergency planning, preparedness, and communication. We had good roundtable discussions with the security folks from all of the agencies and the general representatives from all the agencies. And what was identified out of there were specific activities from a communication standpoint as well as a coordination standpoint that BAWSCA could potentially perform. So that is being examined as part of the strategy project. Those could be some of the things that are identified as quick actions that could be fixed in the second half of this fiscal year that we're talking about as coming out of the strategy project. In other words, the recommendations that came out of those workshops on resiliency and on emergency preparedness are, in a sense, quick fixes and not big projects. There are some projects that might be associated with it, but it might be better communication and better phone trees and better understanding of shared resources and that sort of thing. So what I would tell you is that clearly was identified in the Hayward situation as something that we want to work on. And that's your other example is something that I'd love to be able to say that effort would improve that dramatically.
I appreciate that, but I don't think we're quite on the same page. SFPUC, and I don't know how they operate everything into every agency, but I do know what happens in mine. They did work. They chose to turn the power back on, or the water back on, literally, in such a way that it blew out pipes in Millbrae. All that would have taken was SFPUC to call me, text me, call the city manager, text the city manager, call our new public works director, say, please be aware, and we could have made adjustments ahead of that and saved us tens of thousands of dollars and huge water loss. Water loss that goes to our loss and our cost of water. Is that considered an emergency? No, it could have been handled so it never happened and it would not have been an emergency. It is that kind of communication that I don't see happening.
Okay, well, I will take that back to staff, and as I say, we're discussing those types of things. It certainly is also probably a question that we can have in conversation with San Francisco about how they communicate with your city or your agency.
Okay.
And because I know that, again, in the Hayward situation, there was contact with Hayward and ACWD and with the Sonoma Valley situation, so.
Number two, again, in your letter, but also in the two comments that you made to the SFPUC in February and in January, that the current CIP is reducing down its new water supply work. Okay, I can understand they are balancing a lot of things, but that also has an impact on us. And in one comment, and in fact, I believe Mr. Ritchie stated it at the last meeting that I attended in person, that they are working with Redwood City on a potential new water supply project on that. But the actions that SFPUC is doing in Millbrae will directly impact Millbrae's ability to work on its recycled water project. You can't do a project without money on that. So where in the work plan is there going to be at least an investigation or a report, not investigation, report on the impact of ever-increasing water rates and local agencies' abilities to develop their own water supplies, whatever they might be.
Let me try to answer the question.
And that's especially important to the 11 of us that are 100% dependent on SFPUC water. We are at their mercy.
Okay, so let me try to respond in a similar way, which is to say that we have been looking at, and I want to say brainstormed some number of months ago in 2025 with all of the agencies, the water management representatives. So whoever the water management representative is from Millbrae is someone who is looking at the potential projects and actions that could come out of Strategy 2050. Those could be projects that the city or agency is developing. That could be project or action that BAWSCA sponsors. It could be a project or action that a third party or San Francisco sponsors. And so if that is an area of interest for Millbrae, I'm sure it was identified. I'm sure it was identified in that process as a potential project or action. And so it's certainly being looked at. That's all I would say about that. I would add, just from the back of my mind, if San Francisco's rates go up and up and up, that makes your other projects potentially more cost effective. So just think about that from that perspective. So.
I'm not sure you're aware, but you should be, that our Public Works Director retired in November, and the new Public Works Director only started last month. But I will follow up with the city and make sure that that information is given to you on that. Those are my main two questions on the work plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Zichterman, please.
Thank you, Chair. A little tight. I hate to add to the workload because you've heard my annual spiel about, boy, this staff seems to be overworked. Please consider an additional staff if you continue to be over 100%. I'm not even sure you accounted for holidays and conferences in your town. But anyway, having said that, I'm wondering if BAWSCA would have a role on behalf of all of us to figure out a program to promote the water industry to young people. We've got technicians in their 70s, we've got engineers aging, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to find enough technicians to operate these systems. And I don't know of any agency that can say they don't have any problem or concern about this. So is there something we could be doing as a collective to promote the water industry in our schools, to get young people into the trades and into engineering, civil engineering fields, where this industry can have a chance of being successfully staffed? So that would be my request, just to think about it, if not for this year, next. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Mellinger?
Thank you very much, Chair Vella. A few questions, but first, a quick comment to Director Zichterman. One point I will make is that these are jobs that cannot be outsourced and are not likely to be destroyed by AI. These are jobs that require actual human beings operating actual machinery. And yes, there is a strong analytical component to that, but I think that that is certainly, as we're talking about, how do we make sure the next generation is interested in this? I think it offers a relatively stable career path in economic times when those are rare. I would also like to echo Director Zichterman's comments regarding staffing levels. It does sound like we are expecting that 10.2 number to come down next year. If it stays above 10, I do think that we should be seriously considering adding an additional staff member or part-time employee, something, because it does create strain in the organization to have employees working at 1.25 capacity for a year. There's plenty of studies out there about the impact of crunch time on productivity long-term. So certainly I would encourage staff to keep an eye on that. I was asked by my own city staff to ask the following question regarding Strategy 2050, and it's something I'm very interested in as well. Quote, as Strategy 2050 nears completion, what specific implementation work is being planned, and what are the expected cost implications for member agencies?
So I'm going to defer that question because it's actually right on point for a topic later, for two presentations later tonight. So we'll get to that when we get to that. And you've given Nagin fair warning that that question's coming.
No, it's a heads up, that's all.
Fair enough. So the last thing I want to flag is we have all of these lovely economic projections that we've done, which, as far as I'm concerned, might as well have gone out the window about 3 weeks ago. With the, let's say, current global instability and the likely impact of that on inflation, interest rates, the economy, and everything else, what is our potential exposure to this sort of economic instability, and what sort of precautions and planning are we taking to ensure that we're not left high and dry?
Are you specifically referring to BAWSCA and the BAWSCA budget?
The BAWSCA budget specifically, although probably the greater impact is going to be on SFPUC because they buy actual materials and we don't. So I suppose I would say one, then two.
Okay, well, I'm not going to answer for San Francisco. I guess we could drag somebody back up here if they understand the question. From a BAWSCA standpoint, that is why we have a reserve. So we have 20 proposed between a 26 and 29% fiscal reserve. That's really what that's for, is for times when agencies might for some reason not be able to make their payments, or if our costs go up much more than expected. So that's the budget planning process that has been used there to ameliorate any issues associated with that. And if it's bigger than that, we'd have to come back to the board. I'd have to come back to the board and talk to you about what more could be done.
All right, last question. Last year we did see that SFPUC's rate increase jumped quite unexpectedly by, I think it was about 4 or 5 points. One of the key priorities of BAWSCA as an organization is, maintaining a fair price for our agency customers. As we look at the coming year and coming years, are there additional resources that we need to be investing in? Is there additional items that we need to be adding in the work plan to ensure that we are being as aggressive as possible in advocating for fair rates for our customers with our dear friends and partners in the city and county of San Francisco?
Sure. Let me try to describe, and again, I kind of ran through it quickly because it's the same every year, but there's a lot of work that's done on the capital improvement program. That is the source of much of the cost of the system, and much of the increased cost of the system over time is that reliability effort to make sure that aging infrastructure is replaced. And we have, about a third of our staff is working on that most of their time. And so that's a great focus area for us. We also have, as I mentioned, Christina's over there. I might have been nodding the other way, but Christina does a lot of work making sure that the cost allocations are fair and that the costs that are being charged to the wholesale customers are reasonable. Now, with those things said, the water supply agreement gives BAWSCA and your agencies relatively limited powers to, investigate or oversee those costs. We have the ability to comment. We have the ability to suggest. We have a good working relationship, and so usually when we make those comments and suggestions, we get a good response and we get a good conversation about those things. But we are fundamentally limited by what the water supply agreement says. We don't have a veto on their project, so to speak.
All right, thank you very much. No further questions.
Very good, thank you. Director Stowe.
Thank you, Chair. Kind of following up on that lack of leverage we have with SFPUC, I like your proposal that we investigate their debt-funded capital policies and that new strategy. But if we go down that rabbit hole and we find this strategy is not in the best interest of our agencies, what, if anything, can we do?
Well, I think that we can present that to their commission, and we can present that to them as staff, ask them questions, and suggest to them that they change it. And I think in public comments to the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, you can get traction. I believe we have traction in conversations now, staff to staff. I think that their finance staff is very reasonable and focused on these issues and well, experienced and knowledgeable, and I don't have any concerns over that. It's more of a, why have they chosen this strategy? Are there constraints that cause them to have that particular strategy that we could, as BAWSCA, help change?
Yeah, I definitely support exploring that and seeing and making sure that does work for us. And then kind of along those lines of what kind of seems just more soft power that we really have here. The work plan includes a lot of oversight and review of SFPUC, their CIP, their RWS. That's great. I think I'd like to see some more just intentional language, more actionable goals for what we'd like to see SFPUC do with those plans. I'd like to understand better ways that maybe we can advocate for deferring certain projects, like the Millbrae project, understanding better how much, if we defer some projects, what does that do for reducing wholesale water rates? it just seems like it's so much review and oversight without the ability to pull any levers and actually make anything happen. And I know that's just a part of the limitation of this agreement we all find ourselves in, but I'd like to see just some more meat on the bones there. And then on this kind of last conversation regarding our mission is to provide a reliable water supply at a fair price, and I understand the back and forth that you just had, kind of explaining that there are more things in this work plan that address the fair price issue. But I think my concern is the work plan has basically 7 major tasks with about 35 specific goals focused on the reliable water supply, and only 1 major task called out with 2 specific goals for the fair price. I think task 4 focuses on affordability through financial interests in the WSA administration. So and then the budget, I think budget always reflects kind of an agency's values, and only 14.1% is going towards water at a fair price, 57.6% for reliable supply. And I know that is more nuanced and complex, and it still addresses the water rates, but I just would like to see, moving forward, more parity in our work plan between those 2 primary goals. It seems like the focus is always on reliable water supply, important, yes, but I always feel like the fair price always gets the short straw, and all of our agencies are feeling it now. We're all seeing water rates go up. I think we're at the point where I know there's getting more media attention. Our local newspaper just ran a story that Palo Alto water rates are going to have to increase by 8%. That's far more than our ratepayers were expecting, and knowing it's going to go up more. So I think we're all going to start getting a lot more pressure on what are you doing to be able to help water rates in the future. And I'd love to be able to point to a more robust work plan that shows we're taking this seriously and we're doing everything that we can to help.
Yep. I appreciate the comments. I think one reason that the terminology is written that way is the history of BAWSCA, and I know there's many members, or a few members, I guess, that are here from the outset. But that reliability function, that was what was the WSIP program, which was understanding the system was potentially not reliable. And one of the big missions of BAWSCA was to make sure that more capital was invested. And so certainly looking at how we phrase that, I know that our staff that is reviewing CIP is looking at the efficiency of the investments and whether they're reasonable investments, and not just at, oh, how many things are you gonna fix? So maybe there's a nuance to the language there that can meet both of those objectives. So.
Very good. And I do want to recognize Director Stevenson. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Director Weed.
Yes, thank you. On affordability, when BAWSCA was founded 23 years ago or so, the cost of water was $1 a unit, $440 an acre foot. Today we're at $6 a unit, over $2,500, $2,600 an acre foot. And we're projecting 7% for the next 10 years, the rule is 70. That'll get us over $12 a unit, 12 units, $12 a unit, and that will be over $5,000 an acre foot. I suggest what we need to look at is the way we make those payments. We need to find a way that rather than putting on a commodity rate, we put a bulk of those capital-related costs onto the property tax statement. And that would be on the wholesale. At the local rates, that we take the service charges and encourage those to also be put on the property tax statement, so that we now, in the interest of equity, we only charge the ratepayer the cost of water, power, and chemicals, which is variable, and we have the ability to offset those costs when we have a drought and we have a reduction in pace. That would be a rational billing practice, and we need to find a way in your studies to keep that in mind and see if we can come to a more rational way to do our business. Thank you.
Okay,
The word is responsible also in there, responsible and rational.
Very good, thank you. Director Showalter.
Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to say how I appreciate this very detailed report, particularly the information about, how much time various members of your staff are going to be spending. I know that getting to those charts is not a casual effort. It takes a lot of thinking and talking to people and organizing. So I really appreciate all the effort that's behind that. I have two kind of questions, and I'm not sure that I'm at the right point in the agenda, so you'll correct me if I'm not. One is, it seems to me that there was somewhere in the report, and I read it all while I was on the airplane, so it all kind of, mixes together in my head. But I remember finding that there, something stuck with me, that the alternative water supply projects, there would be sort of a chronology that most of the effort on those would go forward after the state board action on the voluntary agreements, which you expect to happen as state board efforts go, relatively quickly. So I wondered if you could talk about that a little bit, or is that 2 presentations next?
I'm not sure that's a presentation that we're planning to make. I would point out that in the packet, our comments on the CIP identified, on San Francisco's 10-year CIP, identified that their 10-year CIP didn't really include any project funding for any alternative water supply program projects, except in the last year where there's funding for some of the planning work on the Silicon Valley Clean Water Project, which is the Redwood Shores project. So in a sense, those are being deferred. I'd have to talk to San Francisco, or have San Francisco talk about, what's the trigger. I think the regulatory trigger for that is probably some state action, finding out whether the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes are adopted, to be honest.
Okay, so, but I think what I'm thinking of, along with, I hear many other people's comments, is that we are concerned with taking on additional projects that may not be necessary. And that is something that's inherent in BAWSCA's work, as I understand it. And I also would say, even though I wasn't part of BAWSCA when it started, the need for San Francisco to have to do a tremendous amount of capital improvements and become reliable was just very, very well known in the industry. And so the formation of BAWSCA has really kind of served as a model of how a big system like this can find a workable way to make that communication happen between the contractors and the producer, and make sure that the work that needs to be done gets done. Because certainly all of us that have a little engineering background know that if you put off O&M, it comes and bites you. It's just not, it's not a good practice. So making sure that the sort of global O&M, that operation and maintenance that needs to be done for this system gets done. That is a very, very vital service that we perform for all of our residents. Okay, then the other thing I wanted to ask about was, you mentioned grants. And several of us were just at the National League of Cities and in Washington, and we were hearing about bills that might have a prayer of moving forward. And there aren't as many as there usually are, to put it mildly, but there is a new WRDA going forward, and a reauthorization of, I think it was WIFIA, is that right, David? Do you remember? Is it WIFIA? No, okay, well anyway, there's a list of things I could get you, but what I'm getting at is, do we ever advocate with our caucus about congressional action?
Well, most recently, and I think it was in the correspondence packet, I think we copied it there. We've helped member agencies who've made requests for congressional action. So we've supported them in their requests for earmarks and grants and that sort of thing. So that's one thing that we have done this week, I think. So,
Okay, well, I would just say that I think that this body should be probably putting in a comment letter about the need to get these grant programs into the new WRDA.
Okay, very good, thank you. Director Ragsdale.
Thank you. I have a couple of really quick things. One, I love the idea and really appreciate you getting into the finances of the way things are being funded between current rates or should they be deferred. Thank you for looking into that. And then thank you for always paying attention to the employee hours and their well-being. We very much appreciate that. I love Director Zichterman's comment about the youth, and I would ask all of us, if you know of anything you can pass along to CEO Smagel, a job fair, career fair at the high school, a youth commission, and then if there's an opportunity, you can pass it on to him, and he can pass it on to interested staff. I think that would be great. I know we have Deputy Director of Public Works, a woman engineer who's amazing, also a young mom. There's a fantastic role model, and she speaks in front of different groups. So if you hear of opportunities, I would pass them along. And then my one question is, are we doing the intern program again?
Yeah, we have an intern selected, and I think they're, I'm going to turn they're on a semester system. They're starting pretty soon, June 1st, so yeah.
Excellent,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Yep.
Okay, you're good? Okay. Director Bro, you have a question? Randy?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. Cool. Director Pierce.
Thank you. Mr. Smagel, I really appreciate all the detail. It looks like a very rigorous work plan. There are a lot of important projects that need to get done, and I very much appreciate your additional information about digging into the weeds of the finances for the SFPUC. I think that will be very helpful for us. I think it would be useful for us each to talk to our water management reps and see how our agency goes about setting rates, if that's a concern. The only thing I've noticed in all the years is that no rates on anything ever goes down. So our expectation that that would happen, I think, is not going to happen. But I really appreciate you helping us to be critical about making sure that we get the best deal that we can for our water users, and that I know that you manage the staff really well, and I feel very comfortable with the caliber of the work that's produced for us. So thank you.
Excellent. Okay, Director Schneider, followed by Director Nash. Oh, you have the thing up? Oh, no problem. Dr. Nash.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that our Menlo Park Municipal Water, as part of our water rate study, we are including in the O&M space expenses 2 operator and training positions, which are entry-level roles for individuals seeking to gain experience for their drinking water certification. So we are having trouble recruiting people and are trying to get some entry-level people that way.
Interested. Okay, thank you. Dr. Snyder.
Thank you, and thank you, Director Stone and Director Showalter. What I didn't see in the work plan was legislative work. Those of you who know me know that I've been an activist my entire environmental career, so that's 45 years. And the BAWSCA legislation that says that we get to look at all of the capital improvement projects and pay for 67% of those projects, but not get to say yes or no, although Mr. Smeagol told me that BAWSCA did in our history say no to building a brand-new tunnel, which would have, I would imagine, was billions of dollars of savings in that. Clearly, that 2002 legislation is out of date. And it is in all of our best interest to look at that law and make it change it to have a say in which projects are actually critical and which ones are sugar on top on that. It's funny, in the news the last month, Half Moon Bay is publicly complaining about having to pay for 2 other districts where they share in their sewer system. And their comment is, well, wait, they get to choose what projects and we get to pay for it. That's exactly what we do. We pay without having anything to say. That is a legislative change. So if the work plan does not have legislation, and along with what Director Showalter was saying, we need to be more proactive. At least in terms of system-wide, including San Francisco, California is a donor state. Why are we not getting more infrastructure money back? That should be at the top of our legislative list. But I'm sure if we put our heads together, there's a lot of additional fix-it legislation and new legislation to catch up to the middle of the 21st century. Thank you.
Very good. I do have a speaker's card on this topic, which is Peter Druckmeyer.
Peter Dreckmeyer, Yosemite Rivers Alliance. Very happy to hear CEO Smeagol mention that there's going to be more focus on watchdogging SFPUC expenditures. The last BAWSCA CEO failed us on that. I'm very concerned about the future viability of the SFPUC. I'm also concerned about BAWSCA spending. I believe the BAWSCA budget's about $5 or $6 million a year. Since 2019, BAWSCA has spent $3 million on anti-environmental legal expenses, and that gets spread out to ratepayers. I live in Palo Alto. We pay 7%, so $210,000 on legal action that we did not support. The water supply agreement amendment last year, pretty easy math to do on that. If the customers who have minimum purchase requirements were all to decrease their purchases from the PUC to the new minimum, that's 6.34 million gallons per day of water that the SFPUC is not selling. Now, whether the SFPUC takes a gallon or 100 million gallons from the Hetch Hetchy, it's the same cost. It's not paying for the water. So that cost has to get spread out. Simple math, $2,500 per acre foot, that's up to $18 million in lost sales. It gets spread out. 2/3 of that to BAWSCA, that's $12 million. Palo Alto could be $800,000. I think putting alternative water supplies on hold is the smart thing to do. We're not going to need the water. Between 2020 and 2025, the SFPUC spent $13.5 million on alternative water supplies, mostly studies. That all gets passed on to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any more public comments? Okay, hearing none. Okay, we'll move on to item 9B, wholesale water rate setting. Ms. Christina Tang.
Thank you, Director Vela. Good evening, everyone. So I am here to brief you about the wholesale water rate setting as specified in the water supply agreement between San Francisco and the wholesale customer. So the entire Article 6, the WSA, explains how SFPUC should determine the wholesale rate every year. In the simplified way, I summarize it as basically the wholesale water rate should be calculated by considering the estimated wholesale revenue requirement, WRR, which represent wholesale share of the SFPUC's expenses incurred in delivering water, minus all the monthly service charge, which is basically the fixed charge component of the rate structure, plus or minus any adjustments based on the current level of the balancing account, and then divide the entire subtotal as the numerator by SFPUC's estimated wholesale water use as the denominator. So WRR wholesale revenue requirement, it's basically the annual amount due from wholesale customer collectively to San Francisco. According to Article 5, so WRR should be calculated based on the actual cost incurred by San Francisco during the fiscal year and the cost classifications assigned for each program or activity according to the agreement, and also SFPUC's and also the actual water usage by San Francisco City retail customer and also the wholesale customer. The balancing account serves as a true-up mechanism between the estimated WRR billed to wholesale customers and the actual costs incurred by San Francisco in delivering water. The differences between the two, between the estimate and the actual expenses incurred, will be posted to the balancing account. So when PUC's over-collected revenue from the wholesale customers, that amount will be posted and also considered in future resetting, sometimes through multiple years. But in the event when they are under-collected for their revenue because the sales not as much as the anticipated, then those recovery will be reflected in future resetting as well. PUC also estimates the water use based on the year-to-date actuals, last year's actuals, and also each agency's own projections. To give you some context, at this time last year, SFPUC estimated the WR for fiscal year 25-26 to be approximately $375.9 million based on its proposed budget and its projected wholesale water use of 131.3 MGD. At that time, there were funds available in the balancing account owed to wholesale customer. Therefore, $1.6 million from balancing account were applied in 25-26 resetting in order to reduce the rate increase. So basically, the higher the rate, the higher the cost, the higher the rate. The lower the projected water sales, the higher the rate. So this chart illustrates how the balancing account has been used to smooth wholesale rates in the past. So the blue solid line represents the actual rate in the past 7 years, and the blue dotted line represents SFPUC's current rate projections. The gray dotted line represents how much the rate would be without any application from the balancing account. So I would like to use this year and next year as example. If you look at the data under fiscal year ending 2026, so that's current rate, $5.80 per CCF, with the $1.6 million applied from the balancing account. That's why PUC has established the current $5.80, but without that $1.8 million from balancing account, the rate would be $6.13 per CCF. When PUC set the rate this time last year, so they anticipate the balancing account to be approximately $8.8 million by the end of fiscal year. However, given the year-to-date actual usage, PUC currently anticipate the total wholesale delivery gonna be down by 7 MGD, from 131 MGD to 124 MGD. Therefore, the end of year balancing account gonna be reduced. Instead of having a 8.8 million O2 wholesale customers, currently PUC is anticipating the balancing account to be 3 million O2 San Francisco retail, and that would affect next year's resetting. So currently, SFPUC is anticipating fiscal year 26-27 rate to be $6.23 because the anticipated under collection from revenue this year or the negative balancing account balance. Without considering the current negative balancing account balance, then the 26-27 rate would be $6.18. So overall, when you see the gray line above the blue line, that's basically when funds available in the balancing account applied to rate setting in order to reduce the increase. When the gray line below the blue line, that's when there was a negative balance in the balancing account need to be recovered through the rate setting. So per the section 804 of the WSA, wholesale customer dedicate authority to BAWSCA to conduct a auditing review of San Francisco's calculation of the annual wholesale revenue requirement and the changes in the balancing account. And BAWSCA has 60 days to complete its review. Staff from both parties, we work collaboratively to address the issues, differences concerning SFPUC's calculations. And in the past, we always have an agreement reached, although sometimes extensions on the 12 months deadlines needed to address the complex issues, but so far there hasn't been any needs for the wholesale customer to file a demand for arbitration. BAWSCA's review of the WR calculation, it's based on the cost classifications as described in the WSA. So in general, wholesale customer does not pay for any power facilities. Wholesale customer only pay approximately 2/3 of the cost associated with the regional water facility. And for the joint facility, the power water joint facility, the costs are allocated between water and power for 45% versus 55%. So wholesale share is approximately 30% of the joint. The fundamental principle of the cost allocation, it's basically wholesale customer shall not pay for power or wastewater program facilities, shall not pay for water program facilities that only benefit San Francisco retail customers, and wholesale customer city retail customers should both pay for the costs in building and operating the regional water system based on their proportional annual use. And this slide will explain how the preliminary 26-27 rate increase is being determined. And as the PUC's Financial Planning Director, Ms. Erin Corvinera, will be here to present it to you.
So hello, board members. So this slide is just showing our current draft of the estimated rate increase for next fiscal year. The official rate notice should be heading your way soon. That, per the WSA, is required to be sent out in advance of our rate hearing, which we will be having before our commission on April 28th. At this time, however, this is our current estimate, and I don't expect significant deviations from this. So the top bit of this slide is just showing the formula that Christina already reviewed about how we calculate the wholesale water rate. So for next fiscal year, we are projecting a wholesale revenue requirement, that's the wholesale share of costs, of $380.3 million. And then there's the fixed monthly service charges, which currently projected at $5.4 million. And then, as Christina mentioned, one of the things that's changed this year is that our current year revenues from the wholesale customers are lower than expected, so we don't project it will fully cover all of the costs. So there would be a $3 million balance that needs to get added on top to true up the amount owed for the current fiscal year. So all that together, that's your total numerator. And then dividing that out, based on the projections from the demand study that the BAWSCA staff prepared, as well as sort of an updated looking around and seeing that we're now fully, we believe, out of the drought and we're not expecting any further drought rebound from customers, we have revised down our total volumes. So we're currently showing around 125, 126 million gallons per day as the expected volumes. That is lower than it was a year ago when we made this forecast. So as a result, the rates must be higher. So our projected rate increase at this time is a 7.4% increase, which is $6.23 per CCF. On the factors driving the rate increases, I'd say the real big one is the projected water sales. The second bullet there, talking about the shift in the balancing account, is itself a function of water sales. So both in the current year, we're projecting an under collection, and then we've had to push forward the lower water sales. And then it is true that we have some growth in our operating costs and our debt service costs. They're not significant expenditures. I was just giving a presentation about the total increases from the current fiscal year to the next. It's not, I want to say it's around 3 or 4% total for the whole PUC water enterprise, which is roughly on track with the regional share for that. So I think the big story here is really around the water and sort of seeing that we've, in our projections, completed the recovery from the drought, and we're expecting a sort of level off at this slightly lower total sales volumes.
Okay.
Can I hand it back?
Anything
Yeah.
else, Christina? That's it? All right, thank you very much. We do have a speaker's card on item 9B, yeah. Dave, Mr. Warner?
Dave Warner, thank you so much for being here. Director, I think Director Corvinova, is that your title? We're very fortunate to have her. She's extremely talented. The point I'd like to make, and the first part is, I'm trying to find it, is I really encourage you to read the letter, the other letter that's in my packet, that's in the supplemental packet, that talks about how Director Stone and CEO Smegel were prescient last year, where they had asked the SFPUC for some rate sensitivity analyses, and we didn't get them. But if we'd had those rate sensitivity analyses, we'd have had a better sense of the risk that we faced of, look, if we don't have the demand coming in as we expect, rates are going to look like this. And we probably would not have known the 7.4% exactly, but we'd at least know that there's a substantial risk of the rates coming in differently than the 1% that was originally projected. So I would sure encourage us to continue to ask for getting the rate sensitivity analyses. And as my letter mentions, and there's a letter that was in your January packet that talks about or shows what the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California does, there's lots of analysis of rate sensitivity and how various projects affect rates. And so I'd sure encourage you guys to ask the SFPUC for the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comments? Director Schneider.
Thank you. Just to the board members, I have been learning AI and playing with AI because I had asked staff here if they could find the rates that all of our retail customers actually pay. That's a little bit out of what BAWSCA staff is uniform for. But I'm getting closer to a pretty finished AI report here that includes both San Jose, San Francisco, and the West Valley cities of Santa Clara County. And it's kind of interesting. If you're interested, you know how to find me, although I don't have that city email anymore. But this is an interesting rate. It also includes the fixed rate costs and the which of us are still tiered rates or how many of us are not tiered rates. What I need to add to that is which of our agencies can actually supplement using those funds low rate payers, because some of us who are city agencies, we're not allowed to subsidize low rate payers. So this is taking us beyond BAWSCA's perspective to what our customers are really paying. And I really owe Director Stone, because you've been the person that has championed that cost. My first analysis had you and us as the two highest, but now, sadly, we beat you. But anyway, AI is becoming a pretty fun tool to find this data. You have to correct it a lot, but there you go.
Thank you. Any more comments? None. Director Stone.
Thank you, Chair. I just think the key kind of question here is how do we prevent these rate surprises going forward, and what are the best potential solutions? I think there's been a frustration for all of us. I'm fielding these questions daily now by Palo Alto residents. And so following up on what the last speaker mentioned regarding a rate sensitivity analysis, are there conversations with SFPUC that we can receive regular rate sensitivity analyses that will kind of show what happens when demand falls maybe below estimates by 5%, 10% more? I think it would just be really helpful for our own staffs to be able to then better plan for the risk associated with it. I think it would also be helpful to have more visibility on how capital plans impact rates, and don't know if it's asking too much to be able to break down the impact of major capital projects on rates as well, so we have a better opportunity to plan for the future.
Very good, thank you. And I do want to recognize Director Manalo, who joined us as well. So thank you very much. Okay, any other public comments? Okay, okay. Director Nash?
I guess, how do we get an answer about whether we can do more sensitivity analysis is available to us? Because we're talking about it, but there's no answers.
I think that's something that staff could do in coordination with San Francisco on some sort of regular cadence. Perhaps we'll have to get back to you at the May meeting. Maybe that's the appropriate time to talk about what would be an appropriate approach.
Thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item 9C, the BAWSCA long-term reliable water supply.
Thank you, Chair.
Mrs. Shuri. Okay.
Yes. Good evening, Board of Directors. I'm Nagina Shuri. I'm the lead working on BAWSCA Strategy 2050. I will be talking about some of our first-year accomplishments and give you an update on the Affordability Program update. We're now on year 2 of Strategy 2050 development, but this has been years in the making. We started scoping for Strategy 2050 back in 2023. We really spent a good year really understanding what the scope should be, what our objectives as well as the goals for strategy should be. And then back in 2024 is when we started the water management charge. And with that, and we're almost done with that. I think we have about a month left from collecting that in order to fund all the work that's coming out of it, as well as hopefully the next steps as well. And then that yellow star that you see there, that is where we are at right now, a little after, the halfway mark, as Tom Schmagel talked about. It's going to be completed hopefully in this calendar year. We're allowing ourselves a little buffer, in this to be completed in fiscal year 26-27 to really understand what the next step should be. So most of the technical work and all the work would be done in this calendar year, but any follow-up will be done in the fiscal year. Now, you've probably seen this slide many times before. These are the objectives for Strategy 2050. I won't go through each and every one of them, but I really wanted to highlight that we first identified that purpose of what it should really focus on, and it's to really identify the water supply management needs and opportunities for the BAWSCA region and establish a framework to collectively support water reliability and resilience. And from there, we developed those objectives to really focus on that purpose, some of which is really understanding what our water supply and demand looks like in the future, really tapping into some of the regulatory updates, as well as closing the gap on funding. And that key point that we heard a lot tonight is that affordability piece, and that's something that I'm going to be updating a little more tonight. Now, I provided in your packets, there's like a one-page kind of summary of all of the accomplishments we did in 2025. We still have a lot to do this coming year, but we wanted to really focus on what we've done so far in 2025. And we made substantial foundational progress across all 6 objectives. So these are the 6 objectives and some of the key things that we focused on and things that we did. We really built on the analytical kind of backbone of the strategy. We finished the demand study, and then we initiated some of the risk and scenario planning that we started it. We're hoping to complete it this year. And then we're analyzing over 70 projects and actions. These are potential projects and actions, both at the local level as well as regional. And then we also strengthened regional coordination, particularly around that emergency preparedness. I'll be talking about it in another slide of when we will be presenting it to you all in the months to come. And we began developing tools which called the Decision Support Tool, where we put in information from those projects and actions to really evaluate one project versus another. If we're looking at dry year reliability, if we're looking at costs, we have a better picture using these tools. And then on the policy side, we assessed emerging regulations and began coordinating regarding that. So regionally on some of the regulatory responses. And then we had that strong emphasis on collaboration. We had hosted workshops, monthly water management representative meetings. We had 2 different One Water roundtables, and we will be continuing this year as well, and having more workshops with you all as well. And in parallel, we advanced funding strategies and, importantly, integrated affordability. That was something that we wanted to look at, is what is the affordability looking like within the BAWSCA region, and then seeing how it might be impacted with specific projects and actions moving forward. So overall, this year was all about kind of building that technical and collaborative kind of foundation. We wanted to kind of have that to really provide us more informed decision making. And I think that's the new focus for this coming year, is we have all the kind of analysis done, and in the months to come, we can start making some of these decisions. Now, in addition to the work that we did, the 2025 accomplishments, there were some other near-term goals that we initially didn't have in our scope of work that we have added on and we have completed. And some of these are, providing a grant tracker. So we now have this spreadsheet where we update some of the grants that are available either on the local, state, or federal level. And we're hoping to have a few more of those grants that we see in the coming months. And then we also created a schematic inventory of some of the existing interties among our agencies, and that's for emergency preparedness. I was surprised to see that there was quite a few updates to that, and that's something that we now have for our agencies. And then we developed, this is actually, CalWEP developed, this is a partnership that we had with them on a model ordinance to support local adoption of a ban on non-functional turf. And because we have worked with them, we now have access, all of the agencies now have access to that model ordinance. And then again, with that affordability, we analyzed what that affordability looks like throughout the BAWSCA region using census block data. And then we will hopefully use that information as we're analyzing these projects and actions in the coming months. Now, kind of going into a little more in depth regarding the affordability assessment. So again, I said, that first step was really understanding of the affordability within BAWSCA region, but we also wanted to evaluate some of the different rate assistance programs that we have seen in other agencies. And some of them are, even outside of California. We really wanted to understand what it looks like, what we can work with, and in compliance with Prop 218, and then provide some recommendations on some of these potential programs or models to implement either on a local or regional scale. So we have about 5 that we looked at for customer assistance programs, and utilities nationwide, they use a range of these types to help low-income customers pay their water and sewer bills. And most of them are in combination. You don't have one that they just focus on. It's a combination of them. And so the 5 that we focused on is bill discounts, right? Reducing a customer's bill for households that are below a certain threshold. And then we have flexible terms. It's kind of similar to the temporary assistance, where you have either alternative payment schedules or you have short-term or one-time help with those in need. And then we have Lifeline Rate, which is a fixed volume of water that's provided either for free or at a really significant discount that can cover that basic drinking water and hygiene needs. And then funding additional water efficiency programs. Is there more that could be funded to subsidize either leak repairs and water sense rebates, the EPA water sense rebates, to reduce the household bills and usage? Obviously, Proposition 218, it really prohibits public utilities from using ratepayer income revenues to fund these customer assistance programs. But we also looked at some of the non-ratepayer sources. So that could be grants, that could be donations, municipal revenues, as well as land leases, if you have cell tower leases within that, or providing it with late fees. Now, we also wanted to see what it looks like in practice at the local level as well as national. Obviously, we don't have, most of the ones that we had are outside of California, but we wanted to see really what it looks like. So some of these are, and the major barrier is for agencies or for customers to be able to apply, to even know that there are programs out there for them to apply for, those barriers of enrollment. So these are mostly focused on those barriers. So either having self-certification of eligibility, applicants can either self-certify what their income is. They've actually done some analysis to see that fraud levels were actually quite minimal when they looked at it. So this could be a potential option. But if agencies want to look at maybe cross-enrolling with existing social programs, so customers that might be able to apply or are qualified for Medicaid, Section 8, or SNAP, they would automatically be qualified for some of these water assistance programs. So it really takes the burden away from the customer in providing that. And then restructuring rates to reduce fixed charges, lowering those fixed charges, and this was charges and lower and higher volumetric rates to help low volume users. And that's kind of similar to adopting a formal Lifeline rate that we saw in Detroit, which is looking at the fixed volume of water that's provided either at free or at a deep discount. We have building a unified benefits program. This was actually from LADWP, where they have one platform in which the customers can really see what they can apply for. And this is specifically on the water sector. But then you can also have a universal application. And this was seen in Seattle, where you have one form that covers multiple city assistance programs, not only water, but for food, transit, and housing, and it really simplifies that application process. And then finally, we saw that with Valley Water, they have this partnership with Sacred Heart Community Service. It's called WRAP. It's like the Water Rate Assistance Program. And that really helps them because the Sacred Heart is helping with the administration of that, and then they also provide some funds. So these are some of the ways that they're in practice, and there's no single solution, obviously. You kind of have to combine and really analyze it with simplifying the enrollment, having really thoughtful rate design, and then having these external partnerships that we're looking at. What type of partnerships can we develop with some of these nonprofits? So the key takeaways from the affordability assessment is, again, enrollment is a common barrier. really having that information to the customers of what's available and how to easily show that they're qualified for it, either through self-certification or cross-enrollment, and having really simplified applications that can increase participation. And then combining those program types can really expand both the reach and the funding with it. And obviously, we're keeping in mind the restrictions and the limits from Prop 218 that California public utilities have, and really kind of focusing more on these non-ratepayer sources. And we're keeping an update on monitoring some of these federal fundings, one of which being the low-income household water assistance program. So that's it for the affordability assessment. There's 2 more slides just to give an update on what the next steps are and how we want to have you all involved in the year to come. Obviously, the input that we received from in 2025, both at the WMR workshops as well as board meetings, were really important for us. It helped with the progress in a positive way with the development of Strategy 2050 so far. And so we want to continue that. We want to continue that collaboration and input throughout the development of Strategy 2050. So we have 3 workshops scheduled for later this year. And they will be aligned with the key milestones in Strategy 2050 development. This is our tentative schedule so far. So we have 3 scheduled. Hopefully in late spring, we will be reviewing that emergency planning and response framework. As Tom Schmagel said, we had 2 workshops, really great workshops with the water management representatives, where we discussed the work related to the emergency preparedness. This was looking at regional risks, existing emergency preparedness tools, and some opportunities to strengthen the collaboration amongst our BAWSCA member agencies. And then later in the summer, we're going to be discussing that portfolio development. So looking at the projects and actions and discussing what that development of portfolios might look like, and including how these efforts might align with some of these broader water management activities. And then finally in the fall is when we kind of discuss what is BAWSCA's role with this. If we have all of these projects and actions and things coming out of this, what is our role in the coming years, decades? And we will have that decision support tool kind of help us and guide us, and we would be providing that information obviously beforehand to prepare both the water management representatives and you all on this. But we really wanted to see what BAWSCA's role in implementation might look like for both the projects and actions, and really using that decision support tools, and it's really looking at its capabilities. So that's it for my report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Another good, interesting, and detailed report by our BAWSCA staff. Very good. Any questions, anybody? I know I have, okay. Director Hardy?
I will just say that because Santa Clara has our own power company, we have made certain we bundled our help with utilities for that to be all utilities, to include the water and sewer and power, and that when someone applies, that applies to all of that. And the other thing, I also found that many people, if you make it too hard, and when I say too hard to apply, if you make it a paper copy, so many people do not have printers or computers, and the only thing they have is their phone. You've got to make it so that it's can be seen on a phone and applied for, because many people who are lower income do not have access to a computer, and especially not a printer.
Good point. Director Jordan, followed by Director Mellinger.
Thank you, Chair. And Megan, I appreciate the broad survey that you've done here. And I shared some information with Megan probably late last night. But at Aqua in the fall, they had an hour-long seminar on this issue. On a specific aspect of it that works pretty well, it sounded like, and they had testimonials basically from another couple water agencies. But the California Public Utility Commission requires investor-owned electric utilities to share their low-income qualified list with anyone who asks. And so I sent the director of the California Water Agency group shared the list of contacts, and I sent that to Megan. But and there is one large electric utility in this area whose initials I won't mention, but they will send you apparently the care list is what they call it, and you don't have to, at least as a special district, you don't have to do anything other than act on it. You get the list, and then if you have a mechanism, you can offer a rate to them, to these people. Now, where do you get the money? You can't use ratepayer funds. In our case, we would use cellular tower lease revenue. So any non-ratepayer income can be used, revenue can be used to offset the cost of this. And something that's easy to administer. You don't have to go out and actually qualify the people, make them fill out a form. You're depending upon the electric utility to update that list, which they do apparently every 3 months. So it's a thought process to do an easy to administer program. Thanks.
Good point. Okay, Director Mellinger, followed by Director Snyder.
Thank you very much. And before I get into my pre-signaled question, one thing I'll note along those lines, I think I brought this up in a previous meeting, is that I've heard of agencies using uncollected refunds on rate. If a refund isn't collected within a certain amount of time, it can go into the pool and then be used for ratepayer assistance, for instance. Okay, now the question that I was asked by my own city staff to ask is that as Strategy 2050 nears completion, what specific implementation work is being planned and what are the expected cost implications for the member agencies?
Right. Yes. Thank you for providing that time for me to think about it. But it would probably impact the staff workload. Obviously, I spend a majority of my time on Strategy 2050. We're not thinking that there's going to be 10 different projects that are going to come out exactly in one fiscal year. We would be kind of having them in specific kind of things in the years to come. And we're hoping that would kind of be distributed amongst the staff with some of the actions that we wanted to focus on. And then we're also going to be applying to some grants. So the Water Smart grant as well is one of them. And we are thinking some of the next step work that we would do if we get that grant. So we don't think that there's going to be a large impact on, the rates specifically for the years to come. But obviously we would kind of present that to you all next year. But again, it would just be a few specific projects for the next fiscal year.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. Director Snyder, followed by Director Montano.
Thank you. Thank you for the artificial turf on that one. Offline, I would like to talk about it because that's actually my legislation with Senator Allen of Santa Monica that changed the state law that allowed us to do that. So it would have been nice had you reached out to us. I will tell you the biggest problem with it is that regional agencies can ignore local government. So a school district can do whatever it wants when it comes to changing their living turf to fake grass. So, but anyway, lovely to see that. My question was, the spring workshop, when are you thinking of this? And having read and watched the minutes of the policy committee and also hearing how the Millbrae Operations Center, which never had that name until recently, is now critically important in emergency. And I spent 9 years on San Mateo County's Emergency Services Council as Millbrae's rep and as one of the most vocal, because I'm multiple trained in Red Cross and things like that, is each one of us, each one of our agencies has unique local considerations. So, for example, the Millbrae location, Millbrae Avenue is a bottleneck. It's already at an F- rating for traffic. And if that is a key road to get emergency vehicles to and from, and we're evacuating SFO at the same time we're evacuating the hillsides, including Hillsborough, Burlingame, and Millbrae, it isn't going to happen. So when we talk about emergency in the future, what does that really mean? Does that make sure that we can fix every broken water pipe and that's all it means? Fine. But that really isn't the whole question. All too often in our environmental specialties, we sit in our own silos and we don't look at how where we interact with everything else that a local jurisdiction is dealing with. So I'm really, it was in my comments on the policy committee of what just does it mean when we're talking about emergency? And again, doesn't have to be done tonight, but I think we all should know, what do y'all mean by emergency?
I mean, it's both small scale, where we're looking at agency basis, as well as regional. So I think when we bring it all back to the board, we would be scoping out exactly what those next steps would be. This is work that we're going to do not only in the few months to come, but years to come. If we have to have workshops that specifically focuses on San Mateo and then Santa Clara or Alameda, that's something that we can kind of address at that time of really scoping out what that should look like. And we're hoping to do that in May if our workload for our presentation allows for it. If not, it would be at the July board meeting. June BPC.
For everybody here, each one of our jurisdictions has a metric that we don't really talk about, and it's general fund per capita on that. And that really is talking about the fiscal health of a city or its ability to respond to things, including emergencies. I've done it for San Mateo County. I have not done it for the rest of the region. I am currently looking at the rest of you. This is your ability to be resilient in face of whatever changes come across you. But it's general fund per capita. It's a little different because not everybody's budget books are done exactly the same. But it is a true number on affordability. And a lot of it is linked to how much land you have. So one of the metrics you need to look at is an agency's available land. And I can go into more detail offline.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Montano?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Can you bring up that slide that has the service providers? I think.
Is it this one?
Yeah, that one. So I know Santa Clara Valley Water does provide some water rate assistance, but my question is, what does BAWSCA provide? Do we provide anything?
Not at this time, no.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What?
Not at this time, no.
Not at this time.
And that's something we want to.
Yeah, that's was wondering why we haven't. It's been we've been in existence for a very long time and we haven't done that. And I know Valley Water does. My concern too is that the middle class is being squeezed. You know, you mentioned about some of the requirements that people need to be on SNAP or food assistance, but the middle class, the lower middle class, is being squeezed so much, but yet they don't qualify. So I'm hoping that BAWSCA would be able to help those people that are in that lower. They don't quite make it to the low income where they are qualified, but the ones that are really struggling are the lower middle class. I think this, and it's everywhere. The middle class is being squeezed. I mean, being taxed, overtaxed, overburdened, and the high cost of inflation. It's just I would like to see us do something for them. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a speaker's card, so Mr. Warner, you're good? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that one.
Director Mellinger, please.
Thank you very much. In response to Director Montano's comments, I would be extremely concerned at any effort to set up a direct ratepayer assistance program at BAWSCA, given the size of our budget. We have a $5.5 million budget. There are how many residents in the Bay Area? 11 million? Something like that? Quite a...
1.8 million.
Yeah. So I would be extremely, I'd be extremely concerned at an effort to do, given the size of our budget, I'd be extremely concerned at an effort to add a substantial new line item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Shuri. And now we'll go to the CEO report. No, no, no. He said no.
Allison, if I'm going to give a 1 or 2 minute report, we still need to vote to extend the meeting?
We're not going to take any action, but it would be good practice just to vote to extend the meeting since it's after the
Well,
meeting.
9:15? Okay, do I hear a motion to extend till 9:15?
Second.
Okay, I heard, okay, Ms. Manalo and Ms. Pierce. Okay.
Roll call vote.
Roll call, please.
Director Bro.
Yes.
Director Chambers.
Yes.
Director Cohen. Director Duncan.
Yes.
Director Hamilton.
Aye.
Director Hardy.
Aye.
Director Jordan. Director Kiesel. Director Manalo.
Aye.
Director Mellinger.
No.
Director Mickelson.
Yes.
Director Montano.
Aye.
Director Nash.
Yes.
Director Piccolotti.
Aye.
Director Pierce.
Yes.
Director Ragsdale.
Yes.
Director Schneider.
Aye.
Director Showalter.
Yes.
Director Stevenson.
Yes.
Director Stone.
Yes.
Director Vella.
Yes.
Director Weed. And Director Zichterman. That passes.
Very good.
All right,
CEO
so
report.
I'm just going to cover 1 or 2 things on the CEO letter and the CEO report. First off is the Bay Delta plan. We again have had no action on Phase 1, which is the San Joaquin tributaries, including the Tuolumne River. We believe this is under advisement with the staff of the State Water Resources Board. And at the November hearing, we were led to expect that they would be doing additional analysis, going to peer review, and potentially having another workshop here in 2026, but we have not heard anything. So that's the report on our Phase 1, which includes the Tuolumne. On Phase 2, which is the Sacramento system, they have had more recent hearings in February. SFPUC commented as part of the San Joaquin Tributaries group, and that is ongoing, and there's been a lot of, I'd say there's been a lot of talk in the public media that you may have seen that seems to be indicating that that might be going forward relatively soon. So we'll see if the media is right about that. Go to the next slide, please. So yesterday, the California Legislative Analyst's Office released a report, and we're still digesting that, but the basic gist of it is that the ledge analyst suggested that there should be some oversight of the state board and its policies and practices around the Healthy Rivers and Landscape plans, should they be adopted. And we expect that SFPUC will also be reviewing that report. As far as the litigation, as Allison suggested earlier in the meeting, we did file the opening brief for BAWSCA, and other parties filed opening briefs. Ours was filed on March 2nd. We do expect the response at some point this year from the State Water Board. They potentially are going to ask for an extension of time, so this could be quite a bit later in the year. And so we'll continue to report on this as we go forward throughout the year. And then finally, on the FERC process, and that's the relicensing of the Don Pedro Reservoir, that is ongoing. The CEQA process, the CEQA review is ongoing. And that is my report on this subject. I guess I'm happy to take questions here. I have an unrelated topic that I wanted to mention, but I could start here if there are any questions.
Any comments or questions?
Great.
Any public comments?
Okay.
Okay.
The last thing, and Lourdes, I don't think there's a slide on this. It was, no, it was, okay, good, not a slide. In the CO letter, I reported that there was to be a meeting between Millbrae and San Francisco and BAWSCA yesterday at the Millbrae Operations Center. That meeting took place. I thought it was constructive. I think there are some after actions that the parties are considering. And so I look forward to further dialogue. I thought it was an encouraging meeting. There were representatives from both there were multiple representatives from all of those organizations. So not saying there's a solution in sight there, but there's discussion going on. And again, I thought it was a constructive and positive meeting. So that is the end of my oral report on the CEO report.
Okay. Any questions for our CEO? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. We do not have any closed session, so we'll go to additional time for any public comments. We do have the time. Okay. So now, the next item is the director's discussion, comments, questions, and agenda requests. Dr. Snyder.
Okay, coming from, I did not hear about the meeting at the Millbrae Operations Center. I live about a 7-minute walk from that center, but I did get an update from both the vice mayor and the city manager. And the city manager wants me to state specifically that Millbrae unequivocally opposes the current plan in Millbrae. Number 2, that the plan is inadequate and lacking in true alternatives. And number 3, that the city of Millbrae offered to pay for a third-party independent review of the SFPUC for Millbrae and any true alternatives, given that no true alternatives were included. And as a board member, to not be invited is a really lovely insult. Thank you.
Very good. Any more? I have one item. I wanted to just say thank you to everybody that congratulated me last month, but some of you said, are you going to do something nice to us? And one particular director said, I said, what do you mean? He said, well, chocolate would be nice. So I would like to ask Mr. Piccolotti to come up here, please. Here you go. One for everybody, please. He said chocolate kisses will be nice, but he thought I forgot. I did not forget. Please. That's right. Okay, Director Jordan, please. And we'll continue on. Director Jordan, please.
I just have an anecdote on the where the electronics industry is with respect to water use. So at NVIDIA's big conference in San Jose, which has gone on all week, but at the Dell booth, I was looking at their server rack, and of course, a server rack uses electricity and water. And the water, they claim to be able to detect a leak at the rate of 7 microliters per second, which is basically 1 drop every minute. So if the water system, and this is miles of pipe, leaks that much in the cooling system, they'll detect it and automatic shutoffs.
Wow, amazing. Okay, any more comments from the directors? Okay, please.
I will just say that Santa Clara, who has the most data centers and the most to worry about, we are up to 20% of our total water usage is reclaimed.
Very good. Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Oh. Not yet. Oh, he's still.
Super fast. I don't have my chocolate yet, so I need to extend the meeting to get my chocolate. I just wanted to mention that there's a free conference, a virtual conference this Saturday, 9 to noon, for any members of youth commissions or people considering a youth commission in their town, even an adult mentor considering a youth commission. So if anyone's interested, you can look up California Association of Youth Commissions. Look at their website, and right there on the homepage, there's a link. Or you can contact me.
Very good. Okay. Director Hamilton.
I just want to mention in San Bruno, we're going to have our first climate resilience fair next month on Saturday, April 17th at Bel Air Elementary. And BAWSCA staff are going to be present, and I appreciate that very much. And you have any questions, please reach out to me. I would love to see you there.
Leslie, you're good? Okay, good. So our next meeting is scheduled for May 21st, 2026 at 6:30, right here. Okay, so meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Signature, please. Sure. The resolution to nominate.